Hi guys, so a Tory MP called Karl McCartney clashed with Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, over greater access to public transport for the region. Now, I'm not Andy's biggest fan, but he was well prepared for this bully. The Tory MP was talking absolute horse manure as usual, and I will explain after what I mean by that. Here they were at the Transport Select Committee.
Please. Andy, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
okay?
very well. Short, sharp answers and questions, hopefully. Here we go. Do you understand the meaning of the phrase, do not bite the hand that feeds you?
I do understand it, yes.
Super. So do you think that your strategy that might be slightly schizophrenic in private, saying, please sir, can I have some more like Oliver, and then coming out in public and trying to beat the government up like the Incredible Hulk, do you think that's delivering for you and the people of Manchester?
Now, before Andy responds, what a condescending statement. You know, we're the hand that feeds you. You shouldn't be criticising the government. The Boris Johnson's government has thrown the North under a bus. They promise levelling up. They have made lots of promises, but they haven't delivered on those promises. They're trying to have their cake and eat it in a sense. They're trying to make promises to keep voters on side, but not actually deliver on those promises.
Well, you're kind of saying we should just get what we're given, is what you're saying, isn't it? But how about get what we were promised? Because it's actually your government that promised us all of this.
So how much money are you raising towards your transport infrastructure plans?
Let me frame it. Okay, so let me come back at you more positively.
I'll let him answer as well. But, you know, so how are you raising money? That was the follow-up from Karl here. But the problem with asking Andy Burnham, well, why aren't you raising more money on your own? The problem with that is that, well, the voting record, let's look at Karl's voting record on transport first. And he's a member of the Transport Select Committee, if you can believe that. He consistently voted against slowing the rise in rail fares. So can you imagine if we lowered rail fares? Well, more people would actually use public transport. I'm actually an advocate for free public transport for all, because I think many more people would use public transport, fewer people would use their cars. Now, I know there are problems with public transport. It isn't accessible everywhere. That needs to be changed. But free public transport, I think, would be beneficial for all as a society. He consistently voted against greater public control of bus services. Okay. Consistently voted against a publicly owned rail system. You know, it's not working at the moment, and it needs to be improved. But for example, he talked to Andy, he criticized Andy for, why don't you find other ways to raise money? Well, the problem with that is that he has generally voted against more powers for local councils, consistently voted for reducing central government funding for local government. You can't criticize the local government for not having enough money when you reduce their powers and you reduce their funding.
Karl, if I may. I have said now, to fund our preferred option, we are prepared to consider a local contribution. I've already said to you today, we're the only area contributing to the IRP at Manchester Airport anyway in the whole country.
But Manchester Airport's profits are going to increase surely with improved infrastructure.
Yeah, that's why we said we've not ruled it out. But I would like to take that notion further. When we build transport infrastructure in this country, it raises the value of the land around it. If you look at Crossrail 1, you could look right the way along that line. And I make an admission here. I was the Chief Secretary to the Treasury that funded that major piece of transport infrastructure in London.
And I fought to keep Crossrail alive back in the mid-90s at the Corporation London. So we both got history with it.
Yeah, and I'm proud, and bet you are as well. It's the right thing to do for our capital city, and we all want to see it prosper. But if you look at land values today compared to what they were in 2007 when we agreed the Crossrail scheme, they are massively increased. Why are we not capturing some of that uplift in land value to fund the infrastructure we actually need, rather than taking a very traditional DFT Treasury approach to this and just building sort of reduced pared-back railway?
I'm just going to try and nail you down on some figures. So the plans that you have to fleece motorists in and around Manchester, how...
Your plans to fleece motorists. Like, this guy is happy to see motorists fleeced because he doesn't support public transport. Like, if you don't provide cheap, good, affordable public transport, then people are going to rely on their cars. As I said, if there was free public transport, more people would use it. I'm not saying everyone would use it. It may not be feasible for everyone, but more people would use it. One of the criticisms of the rail system in the UK is that it's really bloody expensive, and many people avoid it because it's so bloody expensive. Imagine if you reduced the cost of a train ticket. More people would use it. More people use it, you're able to invest more in it. But people like this guy are not interested in investing more. Look at his voting record.
How much of that money that you're going to raise are you going to plough back into either roads or rail?
Well, Karl, that is a government direction on the 10 councils of Greater Manchester, as they have put directions on Birmingham and other cities. So it's a plan that I'm afraid emanates with your government, and that wouldn't be available, any funds raised for this purpose. What I'm talking to you about is a system of land value capture, which we are absolutely prepared to consider. If you consider Bradford, what would the real...
Well, I was actually talking about this. I want to get back to my point, which is about, obviously, the roads in and around Manchester, which are very important to lots of people, not just in, obviously, your area, but actually the hinterland of Manchester as well. So if you bring in those plans that you have, I presume you are aware of how many people commute either by rail or by road in and around the north. Are you aware of those figures?
Yeah, of course. And the thing is, Karl, because we haven't had investment in transport infrastructure in the north for decades under all governments, including the one I was in, so I'm not making a political point here, those roads are highly congested, as I said before, like the M62 and the M60, and consequently, levels of air pollution from road traffic are very high. There are 152 points in Greater Manchester where they breach legal limits, and it's a reflection, I would say, of the fact that we are a geography where everyone is passing through Greater Manchester. We've got a lot of traffic, but then secondly, the infrastructure doesn't support the passing through of all of that traffic, be it by road or rail.
Are you aware of the figures? What do you believe the figures are?
Problem.
What do you believe the figures are for people who commute in the morning who use either road or use rail?
Okay, but how is that relevant? There needs to be infrastructure. Like, if the numbers are low, then why are the numbers low? It's because people are relying on their cars. Why are people relying on their cars? Because the trains are not reliable, or the trains are too expensive, or the trains don't run in the areas that those people want to arrive at or go from. But if you provide that infrastructure, those rail networks, at a reasonable price, I'm not even going as far as to say it should be free. I believe it should be, but I'm not going to say that here. But provide low cost, reliable transport. You have to invest. You have to invest billions into that. You know, instead of giving it to Dido Harding, can you imagine if you invested that in rail networks in the north? Fewer people would be using their cars. Fewer people in their cars, less congestion on the roads. Less of a need to actually tax these drivers.
You'd have to give me a very precise what you're actually asking.
Well, I'm asking you how many people use road, so whether it's buses or cars to get to work versus use the railway in Manchester.
Well, I could give you the percentages, and the percentages are that the vast majority of people use their cars because
that's not
many
a percentage.
people. Well, I would say around 50% of people are using their car.
I think it's a lot more. You'll find.
I could give you the breakdown, and that is.
But who cares if it's 90%? What's more important is the reason why 90% of people are using their cars, because there isn't infrastructure there. There isn't rail networks. There aren't reliable bus services. And if Andy is trying to raise some money in order to create these things, and he said here, for example, if land prices go up and we're able to sell off some land, make some money from it and invest it in these networks, that's a good thing. But of course the Tories don't want to do that. It's not even that the Tories don't want to do something. It's that they don't want somebody else doing something good. We're at that stage. Like, if Karl actually really cared, he would be supporting Andy Burnham here. He said, yeah, you're doing a wonderful job. We need to create better trains, services, better bus services. Use whatever tools we can to arrive at that goal. Let's work together. But instead, the Tories want to go in the opposite direction and just score political points here, because he's trying to he's trying to paint the picture. Karl is trying to paint the picture that it's a failure, public transport doesn't work, people just rely on their cars. We should be spending the money on building more roads, not public transport. So I think Andy handled himself very well here. Kudos to him for doing that. But these are the types of people you're up against. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you thought about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.